Hi, and welcome to this video on dividing decimals by whole numbers. Decimals represent part of a whole, so it may seem a little unusual to divide a part of something into different groups. If you had part of a slice of pizza because you had eaten the other part already, it would be a little weird to split the rest of that part with a couple of friends. But if you had part of a whole pizza left, say like 4 slices out of a whole pizza made of 8, that's not as weird to split with some friends. Another common way you will see division with decimals is involving money. Consider this example. Your grandma has $4.25 in coins and she wants to split the money evenly among her 5 grandkids. Let's go over the process of how to divide with decimals using this example. When dividing a decimal by a whole number, you want to set up your division just like you would for regular long division, like this. Then, we will work the problem exactly like we would with any other long division problem. The only difference being that we put a decimal point in our answer right above where it is placed in our problem, like this. Now, proceed with regular long division. You no longer need to think about that decimal. So 5 cannot go into 4 anytime, so we're going to put a 0 here and move on. 42. 5 goes into 42 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40, so we write a 40 underneath and subtract. This gives us 2. Then we bring the 5 down to get 25. 5 goes into 25 5 times, so we write a 5 up here, subtract 25, and we're left with 0. This tells us that your grandma should give 85 cents to each of her grandchildren. Let's try a few more examples. 8.275 divided by 5. First, let's set it up like a long division problem. Then, place your decimal point in the appropriate place in your quotient. And now divide as you would typically with long division. 5 goes into 8 one time, so we're going to put a 1 up here. 5 times 1 is 5. Write down the 5 and subtract. This gives us 3, and we bring down our 2. 5 goes into 32 6 times, so we're going to write a 6 up here. 5 times 6 is 30. Write down the 30 and subtract. This gives us 2, and then we're going to bring down the 7. 5 goes into 27 5 times, so we're going to write a 5 up here. 5 times 5 is 25. Subtract 25. Now we have 2, and we're going to bring this 5 down. 5 goes into 25 5 times, so we write a 5 up here. 5 times 5 is 25. Write 25 and subtract, which gives us 0. The final answer is 1.655. Here's another one for us to try. 0.432 divided by 8. First, set up your long division problem. Then, add your decimal point in the appropriate place. From there, divide as you would typically with a long division problem. .432 divided by 8 is equal to 0.054. Let's try one more together. This example will require a couple of extra steps that the last few didn't. 1.973 divided by 4. First, set it up for long division. Then, place the decimal point in the correct place and divide as you would normally. In this problem, we encounter something we haven't before, a remainder. If you recall when you first learned how to long divide, you were most likely taught to add a decimal and a 0 and then keep dividing and adding zeros until you no longer have a remainder. You can do this because 1.0 is the same as 1, which is also the same as 1.00. Adding a decimal point and zeros after it doesn't change the value of the original number because it just means adding 0 parts to the whole. With our example, you are going to do almost the same thing. However, instead of adding a decimal and a 0, you will just add a 0 and continue dividing. This is because we already have a decimal point and you can't have 2. So I'm going to add a 0 and then bring it down. 4 goes into 10 2 times. 4 times 2 is 8. So I'm going to write down 8 and subtract. That leaves us with 2. I'm going to add one more 0 and bring it down. And that gives us 20. 4 goes into 25 times. And then you subtract and get 0. After adding 2 zeros, we finally get an answer without a remainder, 0.49325. I want to do one more example, but this time try it on your own first. I'll give you the problem and then I want you to pause the video and find the answer yourself. Then, once you've got it, press play and see if it matches up with mine. 3.872 divided by 5. Ready? I'm going to start by setting up my long division problem. Then I'll add my decimal. And finally, I'll complete the long division process. After adding an extra 0 so I wasn't left with a remainder, I got 0.7744. I hope this review of dividing a decimal by a whole number was helpful. Thanks for watching and happy studying.